All right, we're going to go through this Onshape self-paced course based on or focused on curves. And we're going to be designing this very complex curvy, will eventually be a solid handle. So we're going to get started. This is a file that has been created. This is the beginning point. There's just two images in here. So we have a front profile and a right profile. Before we can do anything, we need to make a copy because this is a private view-only document. So click on that to make your own copy. Go ahead and give it a name. And now we have copied that into our own document that we can now edit. So the first thing you'll notice is that there's no tools, there's no work area. So right now we're just in a view of images. So before we can do anything, we need to add a part studio. This is very familiar now. We have our work area and all the tools that we're used to working with. So now we can get started with creating a sketch. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to import those images into our work area. The first one we're going to do is going to be on the front plane. Go ahead and select a plane. Create a sketch on that plane. I'm going to right click and view normal to that sketch plane. I'm going to be inserting an image. So if you see this tool is set to the default, which would be inserting a CAD drawing, you want to change that to insert an image. So now we're going to insert the front profile onto the front plane. And you need to now drag out a window to place that image. Now that it's in here, we're going to add some dimensions to make sure it's in the right place. So this dimension should be 5, which is already very close to. And then the bottom line should be below the origin. There's going to be just a small distance between the point of origin and the bottom line. That's 0.125, very small. And then the distance between the left edge and the point of origin should be 5 inches. So now this is nicely defined. Go ahead and click the check mark to accept the sketch. Now we're going to do the same process on the right plane. We're going to create a sketch. Go ahead and right click and view normal to that sketch plane. Now I'm going to add the other image, the right profile. Go ahead and drag another window to place this image. And I'll go ahead and dimension the side. Go ahead and pan over here. This should also be 5 inches. And then I'm going to just attach or make them coincident the bottom line and the bottom edge of my other drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that constraint, click on the bottom edge, and then you might want to orbit just to make sure, but you're just clicking on the bottom edge there. So that snaps that in place. So go ahead and view normal to plane again. And now we need a dimension from the outer left edge to the point of origin. Or we could actually, nope. I need to get the dimension tool. From there to the point of origin should be 5.125. Very specific measurement. I want to just orbit to see. Go ahead and you can see they're aligned to each other. Click the check mark. All right, next step, we're going to add a sketch on the right profile again. So go ahead and sketch, choose the right plane, and then I'm going to go ahead and right click and view normal to that sketch plane. I'm going to hide the sketch 1 and then hide my planes. All right, now I'm going to add a 2-point spline. And this is going to run along what would be kind of the center path of my handle. So it's going to start there, and it's not going to be aligned vertically. It's going to be kind of over here somewhere. Press escape. So a 2-point spline just looks like a straight line until you start manipulating the little handles here. So I'm just going to start by pulling these out away from the spline. This will give me the ability to see the handle a little better, and I'm going to add some construction lines to those. So enable the construction and then grab the line tool, and I'm going to click on the end point and then the handle to place a construction line on both the bottom and the top. Now that that's done, I'm going to add some dimensions to define this curve exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the dimension tool, and then from the top to the bottom, this measurement should be 4.525. And then the bottom, okay, from the top, this distance here, oh, I want that distance. That's 0.4. Let me zoom in so you can see that a little better. There we go. Now we're going to add some dimensions to the handles to really lock this in place. So the distance between the top and this handle should be 1.275. And then from the top point, this dimension here is 0.5. That's nice locked in position there. Then on the bottom, this distance here is 1.725. And then from the bottom to this handle here, this little tiny measurement is 0.23. All right, now I'm completely defined. All my measurements are in. Go ahead and drag these out so you can see them. If you need to pause, and then make sure yours matches mine here on the screen. Go ahead and accept the sketch. All right, now I'm going to create a couple drawing planes. I want a plane that is drawing straight on the top of the handle, and then one drawing straight on the bottom. So I'm going to use the plane tool to create a drawing surface that doesn't currently exist. And the option I'm going to use for this is the curve point. It's going to place a plane right at the end of a curve. So I'm going to click right here to place the top plane, and I need to select the reference curve, which is this curve here. And right away I can see I've created a plane, a drawing plane right there at the top. Click the check mark and then repeat the process for the bottom. I'm going to create a plane, this time at the base of this curve. So I'm going to make sure that the curve point is selected. Click on the end point there, and then just click on the curve. I'm just going to orbit to make sure it's in the right spot. Yes, it is. Click the check mark. Now I'm going to draw on my new planes, starting with the top plane. So I'm going to click on the sketch tool, and that was plane 1. That was the first plane that I created here. Just you can either select it over here on the left or just click on the plane in the work area. Then I'm going to right click and do view normal to sketch plane. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around. Go ahead and make sure I'm viewing normal. There we go. All right, I'm going to hide. See, I'm not sure what I'm seeing here. There's extra stuff. Oh, I'm going to hide the drawing. So I have sketch 1 hidden. I'm going to go ahead and hide sketch 2. That was what was confusing me. So your work area should look like this after you've aligned it to the sketch plane. I want to turn off plane 2. Actually, I'm going to just turn all the planes off. I'm going to draw an ellipse starting at the end point of the spline. So I want that one that's on the top. So this is the end point that I'm looking to grab. I'm going to drag out an oval shape. So I define the long side, and then it would be the short side and then the long side. All right. Now I'm going to just dimension this. Short side is going to be 0.875. And then the long side is going to be 1.625. So these are dimensions here. Go ahead and exit out of that and place that a little better. Click the check mark when you're done. Now we're going to draw, this time on plane 2. View normal to sketch plane. Attach another oval down there. Oop. Want it to be aligned that way. Then I'm going to dimension this one. It's 0.875. And then this side is 1.125. Accept the sketch. So now I have a bottom and a top profile for my handle. All right, now we're going to reveal our sketch. I think it's number 2. We want to see the profile of the handle here, the right side. I'm going to create another sketch, and this time it's going to be on the right plane. Right click and view normal to the sketch plane. Now I'm going to grab the Spline Tool, and I'm going to start creating a spline that just follows along kind of the center point of the drawing here on the. So I'm trying to stay in bounds of the outline as I'm going around. end it at the bottom, but don't attach it to the point of origin. We're going to attach it to the oval in just a second. All right, now we're going to make sure that we're attached at the top and the bottom to those ovals, the ellipses that we created earlier. We're going to do that by creating a pierce constraint. So look at your constraints and choose pierce. I'm going to click on the top point of the spline and then attach it to that top ellipse there. Same thing on the bottom. Find the end point of the spline and attach it. So I have a horizontal constraint that shouldn't be there. So if you get an error, there's a constraint that probably shouldn't be there. I'm going to undo that step. And then view my constraints by clicking Show Constraints. And this is the issue I have right here. This is horizontally constrained to that, and I didn't mean to do that. So I'm going to just highlight it by clicking on it, press the backspace on my keyboard. You can also select them and then right click and choose delete, but I'm not going to do that to that one. So let me grab my pierce constraint again and then try this one more time. All right, that time I'm successful. I'm going to escape out of that tool and then hide my constraints again, and then try to just kind of adjust this to better fit. So each of these little points that I clicked is an adjustment point. All right, so the goal was to get it close, but this is not something we're going to be producing, but you can adjust things as you want to. And if you find that there's no control point, you can add more control points onto your spline by using the tool Spline Control Point. And it has a little plus symbol there. And so this is find a spot. I can add a point down here. And then escape out of that tool, grab it with your pointer, and then you can manipulate it just like the other points. So when you're satisfied with that, click the check mark. Actually, I'm going to go right back into it. Forgot we need to do the other side. So now I'm going to go ahead and create another spline and follow along this path here. All right, and then just like we did earlier, we're going to add that pierce relationship constraint from the endpoints of our spline to the ellipse in the other drawings. Then you can go through and add points if you need to and adjust things, but for this example, we're going to call this good enough and move on. So go ahead and click the check mark. So both sides of this profile are in one sketch. Then we have our two ovals, and then we have sketch 3, which is the line here that divides our handle from the side view. All right, next we're going to change our view to the first sketch. So if you want to hide the second sketch, you can go ahead and do that. And anything else that looks confusing to you. And then I'm going to create a new sketch on the front plane. Right click and view normal to that sketch plane. So remember this is the first image that we placed. Now we're going to create the profile just on one side of the handle, viewing it from the front. So again, we're going to use this Spline tool for that. and then just click. This doesn't have as many click points. It's just kind of a smooth curve around here. And then at the bottom, we can use the pierce constraint. And that lines up perfectly because what we're trying to align it to is this, the first spline that we drew that runs along the center of the side profile of the handle. So that is perfectly horizontally aligned because everything's aligned to the point of origin. So that works there. We're going to see at the top it doesn't work as nicely. So at the top, if I did this and pierce it through, it's going to attach way back here, which would be a little bit odd to define the widest point of the handle, over here. So we need to adjust that to where this point is going to be kind of hovering over here where it would be if this drawing plane intersected this oval, which it doesn't. So it's just going to be like visually in place. Go ahead and view normal to sketch plane again. Oop. Flip it around. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to undo that step because that didn't work out. So the first step in this is I need to project the center point of this ellipse onto my current drawing. So I'm going to use the Use tool for that. And I need to make sure that I'm projecting the center point of the oval and not one of the spline points. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Use that. So that placed that right there in my current drawing. Go ahead and view normal to sketch plane. You can see from this viewpoint, I'm projecting that center point onto my drawing plane, which appears over here. Now what I want to do is attach this with a coincident here, even though they aren't attached. If it was, it would intersect right there. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my coincident constraint, click on the endpoint of my spline, click it there. And I don't want it over here. I want it horizontally aligned in the center of that ellipse. So the last thing I need to do is add the constraint that is horizontal to this point. Now that's completely defined, and in my drawing it looks like it's attached directly where I would want it to be attached, in the center of that ellipse at the top. If I orbit to view it, it's just kind of hanging out there in space. But this will make sense in just a minute why we're doing this. So what we're going to be doing is projecting a curve that combines two curves together. I'm going to illustrate that. So I'm going to just accept that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude. You don't have to do this. I'm just going to demonstrate what we're trying to accomplish here. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude a surface of this surface here, of this line, sorry, and is projecting out in the right way, I think. Yep. Just going to click the check mark because the profile that we drew is over here. And I'm going to also do that for this line here. Do surface. Choose this line here. Click the check mark. Again, you don't have to do this step. I'm just using this as an example. So what we would like ideally is to have these two curves represent the profile of our handle. So if I combine these two together, right at where they intersect, that would be the perfect curve to use to represent the thickest part of the handle when I'm viewing it from this way. And that is represented here by this spline that runs down the center. All right, so now that we have a visual kind of example of what we're trying to accomplish, we're going to project a curve that is going to do this and give us a curve of these two surfaces where they intersect. I'm going to go ahead and hide these for the minute and just leave them there, but just hide them. And the tool that we want to use is found if you expand your tools and find projected curve. That's the option that you want to use. And then we need to find those two lines again. So I'm going to be projecting, if they're hidden, sketch 3 and sketch 7. So it's this curve here, and then I'm going to choose the second sketch and pick this curve here. So what you can see is that exact curve that we wanted to represent the thickest part of the handle. So that is what we need, is that curve right there. Click the check mark to accept it. That curve is down here, so if you need to ever turn it off or turn it back on, it's added below all of these action points. So we just created this curve. I'm going to go ahead and hide the first two sketches and then make sure everything else is on that I need to use. So the last thing I need to do is duplicate this on the other side. So I'm going to use the mirror tool for that. The entities to mirror is this line here, and then I need to choose a mirror plane. The plane I want to choose is the right plane. So that mirrors it on the other side there. Click the check mark. So now we have, there's one extra line in here. I'm going to go ahead and hide this one. And I can also hide the one in the center there. Let's go ahead and hide that one. Then hide 7. So this is the geometry we need in order to make our handle. To make it a solid, we're going to be using the Loft Tool. And the Loft Tool bridges two surfaces or two regions and make it a solid in between. So I'm going to go ahead and click the top oval and then click the bottom oval. And it's twisted just based on how they were drawn. So don't worry about that, because when we choose our guides, it's going to pull it out the right way. So I'm going to click on Guides and then start adding profile splines that we've created. You can see the solid stretching out to match each of those guidelines. So once you've completed that and added all of those profiles, you can see the handle take shape. And then click the check mark to accept that. At this point, if you want to hide any sketches, you can, or any of the curves that are still showing. And then I like to, just to finish it off, add a fillet on the edge here. So you're choosing the edge, click the check mark. Then I could do the bottom as well. The measurement that I used was 0.2 inch radius. So for the bottom, you could choose to do something a little bit less if you wanted to. And then you can just view your work. That concludes this exercise.